Ditch your fear and up-level your resilience. So I think that's quite an important one with what's happening in society across the whole world now. There's a lot of fear, and it's a really great time to sort of, like flex that muscle and up-level our resilience so that we can cope with the uncertainty that we are being faced with. So the first thing, let me just put this into presentation mode. There we go. So the first thing I wanted to say is don't panic. Okay. So when we're faced with a big and obvious threat to our safety and security, such as this global pandemic, which is happening across the world, what happens is that we go into fight and flight response. Okay, we go into that fear state. But what that does is it actually lowers our immune system. I'm just going to minimize the Q&A and check in that a bit later so I can just go through the slides. Yeah, it lowers our immune system, but it also affects our ability to think creatively. So we react to certain events, such as the global pandemic. So how we react to an event equals our outcome. So let me give you an example of kind of the things that I've seen and noticed, is that people are working harder. People are working longer hours. When you're in panic, sometimes you're reactive instead of proactive. You're not thinking clearly, you're not as focused. Maybe you're just a little bit more irrational in terms of the actions that you're taking. And even you might be trying to prove yourself to your boss, to your manager, and fear that, you might lose your job through redundancy, and you feel that you have to step up and learn new skills. And of course, that's great. But when you're coming from a place of reaction and panic, it's not so good. As I said, it lowers your immune system, which, it isn't good for you. But the reason this happens is because effectively our brain is wired to keep us safe and find solutions. It doesn't like uncertainty. Okay. So the brain thinks in words and images. So think of the brain like an operating system. Okay, so think of it like a computer. It's the same thing. It's like an analogy, but it's like a computer. So our words and our thoughts, and our beliefs and the images that we send to our brain like commands. And effectively, every time we think certain words or send certain negative images or positive images to our brain, we are feeding our brain with that information. It's like code, it's like commands. So we really need to be mindful of our language, our thoughts, and the images that we create in our head, because they literally do create our reality. Our thoughts create our reality. And I want to give you an example of that. So our thoughts affect our emotions, and our emotions affect how we act and then the outcome that we create. So the example that I want to share with you, which I think might be quite, pertinent right now, because sadly, unfortunately, through the outcome of the global pandemic, a lot of people have been made redundant and losing their job, which is terribly sad. But it's a classic example of how our thoughts, emotions, and actions affect our outcome. So imagine that you're in your role and you're starting to constantly worry about being made redundant. As a result of those thoughts, it affects you on an emotional level, and you start to get into fear, you start to panic, you start to feel anxiety and overwhelm. But as a result of that, you start to take action. So you may be working harder, doing longer hours, but then the outcome of that is that you're burnt out, that you don't have a work-life balance, that you're not spending enough time with your family. So this is a classic example of how our thoughts, focusing on the fear of redundancy, can affect your emotions and the actions that you take and the outcome that you create in your life. So if you change those thoughts, and I'll tell you more about how you can flip the switch and change your thoughts, and some tools that you can use and take away with you today, as to how you can change the thoughts and create a different outcome. Check with the Q&A. No, it's not moving. Right, I'm just going to carry on the slides because my mouse isn't moving while I'm sharing the screen properly. Right, so mind your language. So language affects our emotions. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, think about the words that we use. So if you think about the words debt, redundancy, lockdown, do they make you feel good in your body? They don't. If you think about it, and please feel free to pop it in the chat box, but when we say these words like debt, lockdown, redundancy, for me, certainly when I feel them, it brings on that sort of, slight anxiety in my stomach, in my chest. But we have a choice around the thoughts and actions that we feed our mind, and we feed our brain. So we can literally flip the switch on these words, and we can have fun with it too. So we can flip the switch. So instead of saying debt, we can say investment. So think of the money that you've spent, which may be perceived as a debt, but it may be that you've invested in your university degree. You've invested in putting money on a credit card so you could buy a car, or go on holiday, or invest in a course for your business if you're a business owner. So we can flip the switch. And when we say things like investment, it doesn't feel so heavy as debt. It takes away some of the anxiety and some of the fear. Some other examples I have are when we're saying it's expensive. Okay, we're limiting ourselves, but instead we can flip the switch again and say, well, it's premium, it's high quality. Again, with lockdown, I heard someone refer to it as a retreat the other day, or you could call it a holiday. Okay, so just flip the switch on the language. But what I will say is, it doesn't matter whether you believe it. It doesn't matter whether it doesn't feel like a holiday or a lockdown, because I know that obviously some of us have got 3-year-olds running around and it doesn't feel like a holiday. But it doesn't matter, because what you focus on, your language, in your language and your thoughts and the images in your head, you're programming your brain. And the thing is, the brain actually gets confused between imagination and reality. So you can actually trick the brain. So you can change your language, trick the brain, and basically that will shift your emotional response, and that will build that resilience muscle and get you out of fear. So a really great technique that my coach taught me that I want to share with you today is, over a space of 48 to 72 hours, just journal out all the negative thoughts that come to mind. You can use a notepad, you can use OneNote, you can use Google Drive, Evernote, whatever. But just as those negative thoughts come in, literally write them down as you hear them for 48 hours to 72 hours. And then go back and look at all the negative thoughts that you've written down. And notice, is there a theme? Have you kept on saying the same thing? Like, it's hard to earn money, it's hard to hold on to a job. What have you been saying? And then literally just go through these statements and flip the switch, write down exactly the opposite. So if you've been saying it's hard to hold down a job, you can flip the switch and say it's easy to hold down a job, and I'm so excited about the company I work for and the job opportunities I have. Again, as I say, don't worry too much about whether you believe it or not, because it's a command to your brain, and effectively you're just giving your brain a new command, and it doesn't actually know the difference between imagination and reality. So give that a go. Other thing I would say is, words can give or take away power. So just to share a little story with you. A few years ago now, I was training for something called the London to Brighton bike ride. And there was a particular route where I had to tackle this, hill, should we say, definitely an incline. And it was definitely a struggle, but I knew that if I said, oh, I can't do this, I would have got off my bike straight away. I would have given up. I wouldn't have achieved as much as I could have done in that day. So what I did was I flipped my language, and I kept on saying to myself over and over again, I can, I can, I can. And it allowed me to pedal for longer until physically and physiologically my lungs and my muscles wouldn't take me any further. But it motivated me into, keep taking action towards my goal. So something like that we can apply to other areas of your life. So stop saying I can't, because you can. Just keep saying I can do this, because you absolutely can. Another example of language and giving or taking away power is, have you ever said something like, oh, I don't want to fail? Or for those that have got children, have you ever said, like, don't stamp on the floor, or don't draw on the wall? Well, the brain doesn't actually process negative, so it won't hear the do not. It's a negative. So it will hear, I'm going to fail, and stamp on the floor and draw on the wall. So the way to change that is to give a new command to the brain and literally say, I will succeed at this exam. Sit down quietly, please. Right. So you can literally change your language. So give it a go. I mean, it doesn't happen automatically, but over time, and the more, the commands you send to your brain, to other people's brains, you're sending different different commands, okay? And again, another way to flip the switch is saying, instead of saying I can't afford it, you can flip that switch saying it's not a priority right now, okay? Another thing you can do is add yet to the end of the sentence. So if you're saying, if you're looking for a new job and you've applied for multiple interviews and you're feeling frustrated and like, oh, I haven't got an interview yet, I haven't heard back from a recruiter, just keep adding yet onto the end of the sentence. Because if you say I haven't got an interview, it feels really heavy and it's very final. Whereas if you say yeah, it gives your brain some kind of hope and it gives you more positivity, and it helps you, you know, shift those negative emotions to more positive emotions. Another one I hear all the time is like, are you shoulding all over the place? Are you saying I should do this, I should do that, I should get up at 7 o'clock, I should spend 2 hours applying for a CV, I, you know, should eat, you know, a healthy salad for lunch. When you're saying should, it kind of just, it puts pressure on you, and it's a heavy feeling. So we can flip that should to a could. So you can say, I could get up at this time, I could eat a healthy salad, or I could spend 2 hours. And basically it's giving your brain a choice, okay? I'm just gonna stop sharing for 2 seconds because I just wanna check in, if I can. Where's my mouse gone? Okay, I just want to check in with the Q&A, but it's not allowing me. Okay. I'm not sure. I'll just carry on. I'll get to the end and I'll answer the questions then. It's not a problem. Right. So, you know, yeah, are you shoulding all over the place? So instead of should, just say could instead. So where is your focus? So, I just can't get to them. So I would have to wait to the end. I hope that's okay with everyone. So yeah, where is your focus? So what we focus on creates our reality. So we have something in our brain called the reticular activating system. Okay, I managed to stop the share. Okay, your papers are ruffling on the mic and interrupting the sound. Okay, thank you, Julia, and I can see the messages now. Perfect. I will stop that. I will go back to my screen share. There we go. Okay, thank you for that information, and I'm glad I can see the messages. Okay, so where is your focus? So what we focus on creates our reality. So we have something in our brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And it's effectively a filter on our brain. It basically filters out what we focus on. So let me give you an example. Whoever decided, right, I'm going to buy a new car, you decided exactly what car you want to buy, and you decide the make, the model, even the colour, and you're going to pick it up next month. You've got to start paying those monthly instalments. And you keep thinking about this car. You're really excited about getting this car. You know, you've wanted it for ages, and all you're thinking about is this new car. And then suddenly you start seeing it on the road, you know, and even in the same colour. Now, it's not that there's more cars on the road of the car that you want. It's the fact that you're literally focusing on what you want. So your brain is filtering out that information for you. So it's really important to remember that what we focus on affects our reality. Like literally we can create it in our reality. So if you're focusing a lot of your time watching the news and focusing on the news, then, you know, the news basically sells fear and negativity. Okay, so be mindful about where you are spending your time. How much time are you spending focusing on the negatives, the things that, you know, get you into a fear state? So think about where you're spending your time and how much time you're focusing on the news and the negatives. Because remember, as I said before, fear lowers your immune system. And we don't want that, because when we're in fear, we get into fight and flight, we can't focus, we're not as productive, and we're just not able to make good decisions. And, you know, we don't want to be in fear. Okay, so I want to give another example of what you focus on creates your reality. A friend of mine who is a personal assistant, she decided that she wanted to shift her role recently into more of a event management role. She realized that's what she really, really enjoyed. Now she messaged me one morning saying, oh my God, I've just seen a diploma, it's discounted for event management. And it was a small ad on Facebook. And you know, she just saw it out the corner of her eye, but basically her brain has filtered that out because that is what she's been focusing on. So that is how the RAS works. If you focus on what you want, you literally can manifest that into reality. There is science behind it. And when we get into the fear from watching too much news, this activates the amygdala, which is our fear response center. Okay, it's our emotional response center. So just be mindful of where you're spending your time. And remember that the subconscious brain wants to keep us safe. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like the unfamiliar. It likes certainty and it likes the comfort zone. But remember, we're not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger anymore. So, are you overthinking? So, when we overthink, it's basically our brain trying to find answers. As I said before, our brain likes to find certainty. Okay, it likes to find the answers. So, have you ever found that you start getting into that loop of overthinking, of what if I get made redundant? What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay the bills? What if I become homeless? It starts to spiral, and it is your brain trying to find solutions to problems. Again, we're in fight and flight. So we really need to think about how we can get out of this overthinking so that we can get a clearer focus and focus on what we want, not what we don't want. So some ways to do that are to change your physiology. Now, one of the things that I love to do, and I think is such a great tool, is just put on some really positive, upbeat music. I love to play Happy by Pharrell Williams. I challenge anyone to hear that song and not get up and dance. It's just so upbeat and positive. You can't be depressed and happy at the same time. So really, if you're feeling fear is starting to take over and you're feeling anxious, then shift your physiology, even just moving your body, putting on some music, going into a different room, going outside, changing your environment, getting that fresh air and vitamin, I think it's D, isn't it? Changing the environment will change how you feel in that present moment, okay? Because when you change your physiology and you change your environment, you change what you focus on, you shift your emotional response. And when you shift your emotional response to a situation, you're building that resilience muscle, okay? So shift your focus to the positive. Think about what positives you have in your life and what you can focus on. So maybe it's FaceTime with friends, with family, with children, with grandchildren. You know, maybe that positive is watching your favorite comedy box set or your favorite film, going for a run, going for a bike ride. But focus on the positives, because as I've said before, we filter out what we focus on. So use that to your advantage. Now, as I've mentioned, imagination versus reality, the brain doesn't know the difference. So visualizing a positive outcome is hugely beneficial when we are just in a general state of anxiety and overwhelm and fear, we're worrying about stuff. Because often when we worry about stuff and we're in overwhelm and fear, we are focusing on the wrong things. We are focusing on the things that we don't actually want. So visualize a positive outcome. Visualize where you want to be in 6 months' time, in a year's time. If you're worried about your health, or if you're worried about your family's health, or you're worried about, your job security, visualize where you want to be in a year's time or even 6 months' time. Visualize the desk, what's on the desk. Do you have one screen? Do you have two screens? And just really step into that picture and really make that picture bigger and brighter and stronger, and see what you see. Make the sounds louder and feel what you feel. What do you feel? What emotions are coming up? And just make everything stronger, bigger, brighter. And I know that a lot of people are visual, but I also know that not everyone finds it easy to sort of visualize. And if you're not so visual, then get into the feeling of what it would be like to have that positive outcome, or get into what you would hear. Okay, so we all have modalities such as auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, so feeling. And we normally have one that's a primary one that we go to. So for me, I'm a really visual person, but not everyone is. So just step into a future positive outcome, in terms of how it works for you, in terms of whether it's visual, kinesthetic, or audio. And as I say, really get into what do you see, what do you hear, and what do you feel. Now, for those in the UK, they may remember Johnny Walker, a few years ago now, back in 2003 with the drop kick goal where he beat New Zealand. I think it was 17-20, and England won. Then when he did that, he visualized that success. He visualized that goal and he visualized the win. He didn't just do it then, he would have done it throughout his training. And top athletes are taught to visualize the outcome they want to create. So when we visualize, we are moving out of fear and we are moving ourselves into a better feeling place, we are shifting our emotions, which is what we want to do. Because the more we're able to manage our emotions and shift them from negative to positive, then when we are faced with adversity, we have the tools and the skill set to shift our emotions and move away from that fear and just flex that resilience muscle. So I hope that's helpful. Right, so focus on gratitude. So this is a big one for me, and I love this. So focus on gratitude, focus on what you do want in your life instead of what you don't want. And it's so easy, isn't it, to focus on the things that you don't want. I don't want to be made redundant, I don't want to get ill, etc. And I know, how sometimes it can be really difficult, but the more you pay attention to your thoughts and do that 48 to 72 hour journal around your thoughts, once you become aware on a conscious level of the stories that you're telling yourself, then you can start to flip the switch and you can start to change how you feel. So focus on gratitude. So for me, one of the things I do in the morning as part of my morning routine is to write out 3 things that I'm grateful for. And there's many things I'm grateful for. We have so much. We have food in the cupboard, and we're here today, which is amazing. So focus on 3 things that you're grateful for. For example, I'm sure some people have their own gratitude practice. And remember, you don't have to do it in the morning. That's what works for me. Mel Robbins talks about doing it in the evening before bed, because when you wake up in the morning, you've programmed your brain before you go to bed to wake up with gratitude. So, do what works for you. But do know that 95% of the stories that we tell ourselves, the catastrophizing, the brain just catastrophizing, they don't actually happen. It's just our brain, referencing past events and just trying to keep us safe. Don't take this action because this might happen. It's just, stories. And 95% of the time, they don't actually happen. So just be mindful of that, and you can always flip the switch, change the story. So just look for the evidence. Is there evidence within the story? Like if you're saying to yourself, I'm going to lose my job, is there evidence? Has someone said to you, I'm going to lose my job? So just remember to flip the switch. I had a significant event on the 22nd of October 2018 where I discovered I'd been conned out of thousands of pounds of money worth, via cryptocurrency, and some other things happened as well. I won't go into it fully now. But I spent a lot of time in fear and a lot of time in those stories of, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my home, I can't pay the bills, I'm gonna be homeless, I'm gonna lose my cat. And it was just literally spiraling. And then once I sort of managed to go do the mindset work and started to shift my focus on what I wanted to focus on instead of fear, I set the intention to focus on hope and optimism. Then I started to shift my emotional response. And when I shifted my emotional response, I was better able to manage the situation. And I took more aligned action to sort out the situation. And I have to say, it's quite a long time ago now, and things are definitely a lot better. So remember to look for the evidence, and remember to just flip the switch. Because we're always going to have fear, but we don't have to let it control us. There are certain things, obviously, that we can't control, like the stock market, the economy, the British weather, that's for sure. It changes day by day. But remember, you can control how you react to a situation. And I want to share a really powerful quote with you, which I think is amazing. It's by Maya Angelou. It says, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Now, I just feel that's really powerful, and it's a reminder that how we react to an event will predict our outcome. So we can choose our thoughts, we can choose our language, we can choose the images that we send to our brain. Over time, we can put things in place so we start to flip the switch and change our language so that we're not reduced by the events that happen to us. We can choose to be more aware and choose to react in a different, more positive way. And that's just building resilience. That's just building the resilience muscle. And the more you do it, the more resilient you become, and the more you move away from fear. So are you feeling calm? Well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but there's a sweet spot between calm and uncertainty. So I want to share 3 questions with you today. And I encourage you to write these down, go away, think about them, journal on them, see what comes up. Okay. And the first one is, what is it that you're worried about? Now, like if we unpack this a little bit, it may be that you're worried about losing your job, you're worried about redundancy. But when we peel it back, like peel back the layers of the onion, actually, maybe that's not the only thing that you're worried about. Maybe the underneath of that is that you're worried that you're not going to pay your bills, or you're not going to support your family, or you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage, etc. So notice where your thoughts go, and then ask yourself, what is within your control? What can you control about your situation? Because as I say, there's lots of things that you can control about your situation. So can you have a conversation with your boss? Can you update your CV? Can you, do more skills? As long as you're not doing it reactively, but as long as you're doing it proactively, and you're getting clear on what skills will be beneficial for your career. So what is within your control? So have a think about that, because there are many things that are within our control. We can choose what time we get up. We can choose what we eat to a certain degree. So think about what is within your control. And then ask yourself, lastly, what can you do better? So what can you do better? So maybe you're basing this on a previous experience. Maybe it's just that you can create a better CV for yourself. Maybe it's you can be better with your sleep pattern. So go to bed at a certain time, set an alarm to wake up. Maybe you can create a better morning routine. Maybe you can have better conversations with yourself. So really think about those three questions, because they're really powerful. What is it that you're worried about? And what is it you're really, really worried about? What is within your control? And there are things that are within your control. And what can you do better? And remember that you can focus on your strengths, okay? And focus on possibilities. And I think this is quite an important one. So focus on your possibilities, focus on what is possible, not your limitations. And I think so many of us, so often, including myself from time to time, most definitely, I'm still human, even if I'm a mindset coach, is that we so often focus on our limitations. So instead, let's flip the switch on that. Let's focus on our possibilities. So what can we do? What can we create? If we're worried about money, can we create a side hustle? Is it time to set up that VA business, or the side hustle? Can we turn it full time? Is it some part-time work that we can look for? Is there better ways to look after our health? So just really think outside the box, because you're more resilient and adaptable than you realize. And when we're faced with adversity, the human brain, the human body, it's very adaptable. We actually are able to adapt much better than we think. And I know this from personal experience, because over the last year I've had some real challenges, but you know what, I am still here. I'm still here. So I just say, focus on your strengths, get clear on what your strengths are, write out a list of your strengths and put it somewhere that you can see it every day, whether it's on your fridge, on a cupboard door, wherever. So just focus on your possibilities and let go of those limitations. And if you're not sure, or you can't think of that many strengths, speak to your friends, your families, your colleagues, your boss, whoever. Just add to that list and read it, or just read a few things off the list each day, and remind yourself of what is possible, because so much is possible. You have so much strength. Okay, so focus on your strengths and resilience. Okay, so as I've touched on before, resilience is a muscle. So it's a muscle, and it's something that you can strengthen, and you can strengthen it by shifting your emotions. So the more you strengthen your resilience, the more you're able to manage your emotions in the face of adversity. It gives you ability to bounce back quicker. I know for me, when I have something bad that happens, kind of my bounce back ability depends how big it is, but typically it's 2 days max, and within that point I'm like, right, I'm sorted. I'm but that's something quite big. If it's something quite small, half an hour. Okay, we can't get rid of fear. Think of fear like, it's not the driver, it's not even the passenger. You can put fear in the car bonnet, the boot. It doesn't have to be the driver of the car, so it doesn't have to control you. So just think about that resilience muscle and strengthening that. So silencing the inner critic. So we all have an inner critic, that voice that speaks to us and says that you can't do this, that you're not good enough, that you don't have what it takes, etc. Now, have a think about your inner critic and notice the tone of voice. Is it your voice when these negative thoughts come in? Is it your voice that's coming out? Is it your parents' voice? Is it someone else's voice? Is it a teacher's voice? And get clear on whose voice that is, for starters, and what tone of voice that is. And next time you notice that negative voice coming in, and that negative statement coming in from your inner critic, whether it be your voice or maybe one of your parents' voices, just flip the switch and repeat what it said either out loud or in your head, and role play it and just pretend that voice is Mickey Mouse or Goofy or Tweety Pie. And this is a great NLP, neuro-linguistic programming technique, to help you shift the emotional response to that negative statement, because trust me, it's quite fun to do this. When you do this, you cannot take that statement seriously. You can even play or imagine some circus music going on in your head in the background and saying I'm not good enough in that Tweety Pie voice. You can't take it seriously, and when I do it every time, it makes me laugh. And laughter is a positive emotion. We want to shift into that place. We want to shift into laughter. So just check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is the tone of voice? Who is saying it? Is it, is it your mum? Is it your dad? Is it your voice? Next time you hear that negative statement, just repeat it. And Mickey Mouse, Goofy, Tweety Pie, or your favourite Disney character, and just play some circus music in the background in your mind. It's just your imagination. So you can play tricks on your mind. It's good fun. So the brain learns through repetition. So the more positive thoughts that we have, the more positive things that we focus on, the more positive that we feel, because the more positivity that we feed our brain, the more positive that we feel. If we spend all day, as I say, watching the news and focusing on the news and focusing on what's, keeping us in fear and looking at our finances all the time and worrying, then we're just going to get more of what we've always got. Okay, so really be mindful about where you focus your time, where you focus your energy, your thoughts, and the images you create in your head, and start to switch those to the positive. Okay, so be kind to yourself. So focus on the present moment. So this is an important one, because I think it's so easy for us to start focusing on the past, like what's happened in the past, things that have gone wrong in the past, or focusing on the future or what might go wrong. But at the end of the day, we can't control the past and we can't control the future. But what we can control is the present moment. In fact, the present moment is all that we have. And it's such a powerful thing, isn't it? Like, let's come back to the present moment and stop catastrophizing around the future and just focus on what's happening now. And literally just be kind to yourself. Okay, just be kind to yourself. Schedule time for yourself. Schedule time, for a lunch break, for a walk, for a morning routine, for time to connect with your friends, for time in nature, for exercise. Be kind to yourself, okay? This is so important now more than ever. And as I said before, just remember, you have a choice. You have a choice in how you act and respond. It takes time to put all this mindset work into practice, but I hope from today's webinar you can take away some tools that you resonate with and start flipping the switch on your inner critic and start flipping the switch on the negative thoughts and statements that you're feeding yourself, so that you can start focusing more on the positive and have more positivity in your life and build that resilience so that you can actually move away from fear. Okay, so what are you thinking? So again, this kind of comes back to our thoughts. So get curious with your thoughts. Really think about what your thoughts, where do they come from? So is it something someone's taught you? Is it something that you've learned over the years? Is it something your mum or dad or a teacher said? So notice what thoughts are coming up into your mind. Are you being particularly hard on yourself? Are you saying cruel things to yourself? I mean, you wouldn't say cruel things to a 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old. So don't say them to yourself, but get curious with the thoughts. Do that journaling exercise, 48 hours to 72 hours, just write down everything that comes up as you remember them. But get curious. That thought, is it something that your dad instilled in you or your mum instilled in you? Just get curious and ask yourself, where did this thought come from? That's an interesting thought. And just like, where did you learn these beliefs? Okay, so that is, just really, really important. And I think The other thing I'd say here, again, it goes back to the panicking thing. Like, don't panic just because other people are panicking. Okay. It's very easy to get into panic and into negativity. But again, look for the evidence. Is there evidence there that says that you need to panic? You know, when we're panicking, we're in fight and flight, and it affects our immune system. It opens us up to, potentially illnesses. So be mindful of your thoughts, be mindful of what you're telling yourself. And if you're spending time with people who are particularly negative or focus on the negative, or just aren't encouraging you or supporting you in the way that you need to be supported, spend less time with those people. I know sometimes it's hard because sometimes they're your family members, but you can choose not to let it in. You can literally just choose not to let it in. Just say to yourself, I choose not to let it in. And think about your friends and your family. And obviously, I know a lot of it is virtual right now, but think about, who do you want to spend the most time with? Who kind of lifts you up the most? So really think about those people that have got a really good growth mindset, that are more solution focused and positive, because those are the people that you want to spend more time with right now. Okay, because their positive energy will bounce off and rub off on you. So what if X, Y, Z? Have you ever said, what if I do this? What if this happens? What if is such a common one. And I find myself saying it when I start to get in the spiral, and I'm becoming more aware of my own language because I do the mindset work. I hear my clients say the same, like, what if this? What if I lose my job? What if I get ill? Well, let's just flip the switch on that. Have some fun with it. What if I keep my job? What if I get a pay rise? What if I get a promotion? What if I get a better job? What if I was unhappy in my job and I get a job that I'm happy in? So we can always find an alternative. That's kind of the mindset reset. It's like reset. It's like flip the switch. In fact, one of my clients, who's an executive assistant, she actually got a pay rise. So, this stuff is possible. So again, it comes back to focusing on what you want to achieve. Okay, so flip the switch. And if you find that you're starting to get into that, oh, what if I lose my job? What if I can't pay the bills? What if I become homeless? Or whatever your thought process is, I'm just sharing what I used to go through, and it may not be the same for you. But as I said previously, get curious with your thoughts. Ask where they're coming from. Is it something someone said? Did you learn it? Did you teach yourself? Where did they come from? And literally flip the switch. What if I get a job, next week? What if I get a pay rise? What if I stay where I am? What if, everything's going to be okay? So just really think about how you can flip the switch. And again, just like visualize that future. As I said before, visualize the future you want to create. Like, the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, so just use it to your advantage. So if your desire is to set up your own business, imagine yourself in 12 months as a virtual assistant or whatever business it is that you want. If you want to be in a new role or higher up a role, you want to have a promotion, again, visualize it. And it doesn't have to be something you do all the time, but the more you do it, the more you're sending those commands to your brain to say, this is what I want. And the brain will filter out those opportunities. You will start to notice opportunities which will be in alignment with what you're focusing on. So I just really want to stress that. So what we're doing for time, we've got about 5 minutes left, and we'll open up for Q&A. So we're doing good. I've just got one more slide, so probably just a few minutes ahead. So lastly, like, who is looking after you? So think about it. Are you eating well? Are you drinking well? Are you sleeping well? I know for me, I went through a slight chocolate binge for about a week, and I don't even eat chocolate. I kind of don't eat chocolate, and then I have little relapses and I start to eat chocolate again. But when you're not eating well, you're not drinking well, and you're not sleeping well, this affects your health, it affects your immune system, and it's not good for you. Okay, you want to look after your health. So if you're going to look after your mind, you also need to look after your body, because the two go hand in hand. Okay, so think about what you're eating, what you're drinking, how much you're sleeping. Do you need to change your sleeping patterns? Do you need to drink more water? Can you change some areas of your diet? I know that we get into that comfort eating, but it doesn't solve the problem. Okay, and when we eat better, we feel better. So the other things that you can do to look after yourself is to meditate and exercise. Maybe some people here that do meditate and exercise. So when we meditate and exercise, it replaces that cortisol and that adrenaline, which is effectively the stress hormone when we're in fight and flight, and it replaces it with dopamine and serotonin. And these are the chemicals which actually regulate your mood and bring you happiness and joy. And we want happiness and joy as opposed to fear and anxiety. So by regulating our emotions, then we are better able to manage any negative situations which come our way, which is effectively us flexing our resilience muscle. Okay, so think about, meditating. Can you do it as part of your morning routine before you go to bed? What exercise can you do? Even if it's just a walk at lunchtime, okay, but something is better than nothing, because it will shift your negative emotions. And I know sometimes you feel like, I don't want to do any exercise. I remember what it was like for me a couple of years ago when I was sort of slipping into depression, and I found it hard to get motivated to take action. But I knew that if I didn't, that I would spiral and I would let my negative emotions just take over, and that I wouldn't, be able to move forward as easily. So I stepped into action. I did the things that I was reluctant to do. I did exercise. I did meditation. I went for walks. And you know what? It really helped. It really helped me shift my negative emotions. Again, changing your physiology, changing your environment really helps you shift your perspective. You can then focus on, beautiful nature, flowers, dogs running around, whatever it may be. So I'd also say really just ask for help. I think now more than ever in society, it's such a challenging time. We are going through so much collectively as a globe. And I know a few years ago when I had a major mountain bike accident back in May 17, I wasn't so good at asking for help, but ultimately I was living at home on my own. I had a full cast from my hips to my ankle because I broke my knee and amongst other things. And I was in a lot of pain, and there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. I couldn't walk very far. There's so much I couldn't do. So for me, I had to ask for help, and it's a sign of strength. Okay, it's not a sign of weakness. I know people say it's a sign of weakness. It's not. It's an absolute sign of strength. And now more than ever, ask for help. Reach out to me if you need some support. Ask for help. And if you're feeling really anxious, then reach out to people like Anxiety UK to find out how they might be able to support you. But please know that in this moment and going forward, you are not alone. You're never alone. There are people out there that are there to support you and help you. So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. So I just want to say thank you. Love to connect with you on social media. Hopefully you found this presentation useful. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a Facebook page as well. You can connect with me there. Lastly, I do a weekly mindset newsletter, which goes out every Friday at 7 a.m. UK time. So if you're interested in receiving a mindset newsletter, then you can just take a screenshot of that, and it will get you added to the newsletter, and hopefully it will help you shift your mindset and shift from those negative emotions of fear and help you up level your resilience. So thank you.